Miss Nancy from the Smithtown Library, and today I'll be showing you how to make yarn flowers. So to get started, you're going to need yarn of any color, whatever color you want to make your flower, a fork, a needle, and you want one that has a big enough head to thread your yarn. A needle threader might be helpful in threading your yarn. A button or a bead, whatever you want to use. Scissors, and you might want a jar opener to help you pull the needle through, depending on how thick your yarn is. So to get started, you're going to cut about 3 feet of yarn. It doesn't have to be exact, though the more you have, the easier it'll be to work. And you're going to cut another foot to 18 inches for later. So I'm just going to put that smaller piece to the side. And the first thing I'm going to do is thread my yarn, thread my needle. And I'm actually going to take the needle side and put it to the side because we're going to work on the other end. So to get started, you're going to take your fork. Now a flat fork would be perfect. If you don't have one, like I have a dinner fork, you're going to use the back side. You do want one that is big enough. It's going to be about an inch and a half that you're going to be covering. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your yarn and put it right through that first prong. And you're going to leave about an inch or inch and a half tail, just like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to weave through each of the prongs. So you're going to go over, under, and you're going to go back, over, under. So that's going to make one row. And you're going to do that 15 times. So again, you're going to go over, under, back around, over, my yarn got caught on both, over, under, and back. So that's row 2. So you're going 8 times to make a row. And again, you're going to do this 15 times. So that's 3. Over, under, over, 4. 5. Now you don't have to keep it super tight to get when you're starting. You will push them all together when you get to the next step. But you don't want to keep it too close to the tips of the fork, because otherwise it'll slip off. And what I've been doing is I kind of just started holding that original little tail. Now that I have a couple rows, I can let go. I just find it's an easy grip. I have my thumb on top and my other finger is on the bottom holding the piece and the piece together. Two, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I need 2 more because we needed 15. And 1 more. So again, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So now this is what I have. There are 15 rows on both sides. It doesn't have to be a straight line, that's fine. You just want to make sure you have 15 rows. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle side and I'm going to thread it through that first prong. Now the easiest way to do that is in the gap between the 2 prongs, through 1 and 2. This is where you might need your your jar opener, because it might be hard to grip your needle on the other side. It really depends on how thick your yarn is and how thick your needle is. my red flower that I made was much thicker, so I did need it. For this one, it seems like it's much thinner. And I actually missed part of it on the very bottom, so I'm just going to go thread through it again on that little piece. If you do miss a piece, it's not the end of the world. It still works. So now that it's through, I'm going to tie this piece with my needle, and I'm going to tie my tail in a double knot to keep it all securely in place. Just like that. And I'm going to cut my small tail off with my scissors, and I'm going to try to keep it as close to that knot as possible without cutting the knot off. Now it's there, it's out of the way, but it's securely in place. And now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go up the next of our prongs. So I'm going to go in the middle gap between my middle prongs. I'm going to push it up. And you want to be very careful when you're pushing up, because your yarn will start sliding and you don't want it to fall off of the fork. If it does, then it's very, very hard to get it back on with your weaving, and you might have to start over. So now I have it up on top, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go between the last two in the middle, that little gap, and I'm going to go down that third prong. Now sometimes this happens where your needle goes to the wrong side. Just simply back up and slide it through. You might have to push a little harder where your needle is just to get it going, and grip it through. And now, as you might have guessed, we're going to go up that last prong. And again, I'm going to go in that middle between the last two, but it's going up on that, guiding on that prong. Now this one is nice because if by accident you do push it off of the fork, the rest of the yarn is tied, so you can still fix your mistake. So now I pulled it through, and you can see that it's not quite even. That's fine, because you're going to end up pulling a lot harder on one side to make the petal. So now that it's all through, I'm going to pull it right off of the fork, and this is what you should have. It should be kind of square, doesn't have to be perfect, and you have your needle right here. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take your needle and you're going to thread it through that last loop from that last prong again. Let me pull my needle tail out. So you should almost have it looks like a purse with a little extra tail. And what you're going to do is pull that tail so your little purse handle goes away, and you're going to make it as tight as possible so it almost makes it more triangular. And now I'm just going to take my needle and thread it back through that purse handle. And I'm going to knot it. Just to keep it in place. And I'm going to cut my excess off. Again, I'm going to try to get it as close to that knot as possible. So this is what you should have. It should be curved a little bit on one side, because that's going to be your petal. And you're actually going to do that 6 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take your other yarn that you had cut, and you're going to thread your needle. So now we're going to put our petals together. Sometimes even the needle threader needs work. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to put a knot at one end, just like you would if you were going to start sewing. So I have my knot, and now I'm going to take the side with my needle, and I'm going to start threading my petals. Now I'm going to take the needle and try to go through that bottom loop like we did earlier, where our purse string is. And I'm going to pull through all the way to that knot. So it should look like that. And I'm going to do this for all 6 of them. You want to try to keep them the same direction, but you can start turning them as you go. You're just going to make sure you go on that smaller side. Now these flowers are great because you can put them, use them for many different things. You can make headbands for little girls, add it as like a little applique. You can make it into a pin. You can put a magnet on the back of it, or you can even attach it to a card that you're going to send to your grandparents or, you know, your teacher, whatever you want. So now that I have all my pieces threaded, this is what it looks like. You can see it's starting to make that flower shape. I just have to attach my 2 other ends. So to do that, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to put it through, up and through that first petal. So now you can see it's starting to form that shape. And I'm going to pull. And now I'm actually going to go right and thread through that first loop again, that whole bottom half. And I'm going to make a circle again, kind of tightening as I go along to give a little more curve to my petals. There's no exact science. If you miss one loop or you go through another one, it's fine. It still looks pretty. This is through my 3rd loop and my 4th petal. Through my 5th petal. And I keep pulling a little tight just to give it a nice little curve to it. And through my 6th. And then I'm actually just going to go right back through that first petal, and I'm going to go right down so it ends up on the other side. And I'm going to pull through. So now that I have this nice looking flower, we just need a center. And I'm going to use a button. I found it in our button collection. You can use a button, you can use a bead. I used some fancy buttons on my blue one. So it's really up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew a button like you would onto your coat or onto a shirt. Oops. And cross over. And down. And I'm going to pull tight. So now we have that, and I'm just going to take the back and I'm just going to loop it through just to knot it, just like you would on a button. I'm actually just going to double knot it just to be safe. And now I'm going to cut off my extra slack. And there you have a nice yarn flower. Thank you for joining me today. We can't wait to see you in our buildings soon, but until then, stay well and continue to visit the library's website at www.smithlib.org for more programs and resources.